Back in 2021, when the first Dune released, we were still recovering from the disasters of COVID. Nothing from ordinary living was quite normal yet, much less the movie industry. I remember going to the movies for the first time in like over a year to watch Godzilla vs. Kong that March. It was so nice to be back in the theater full of audiences that were excited to be back at the movies, and what better way than to watch a blockbuster that was highly anticipated. The quality of the movie may not have been that great, to be honest, but that part is irrelevant. Movies were slowly starting to find their footing again that year, and despite us getting a lot of unfinished leftovers that year, we were finally starting to receive some quality releases that we were all excited for that got pushed back because of the pandemic. It's the year that we got Licorice Pizza, The French Dispatch, No Time to Die, all great movies, but Dune really felt like a game changer.
He's keep toying with him.
No. Paul has never killed a man.
I remember watching Dune in a packed IMAX theater that October, and apart from the surprisingly great turnout the movie had, that experience truly felt like the defining moment of movies finally being back. What do I mean by that? Well, first off, audiences didn't let a really cool movie fail. This was a $165 million sci-fi book adaptation by Denis Villeneuve, the same person behind movies like Blade Runner 2049, Prisoners, Arrival, and many more. All signs pointed towards Dune being a really promising movie, and it was. It was a true spectacle, but the important part is that people took notice and showed up. There was a real possibility that the movie would have come and gone if it didn't make enough money. Well, it ended up grossing $402 million worldwide, which meant not only did it not fail, but it was a huge success. This felt like a big win for movies. It showed that people were still interested in new franchise films that weren't just Marvel. Just for comparison, Spider-Man No Way Home came out that same year and became the highest grossing movie for that year on a $200 million budget. $35 million more than Dune, mind you, and look how drastically different the movies ended up being. Now, I'm not an avid MCU hater, but it's pretty clear that the studio had gotten way too comfortable crunching VFX work for the sake of making release dates and simply not caring about the work they put out anymore. Dune felt like the complete opposite. Dune was a movie that truly had a vision and had to be seen on the biggest screen imaginable. What Denis and the rest of the crew were able to achieve was nothing short of extraordinary. It ended up being one of my favorite movies of that year, and it feels like I only end up liking it more and more as I look back on it. Just a preface though, I have never read the original novel. I went into Dune completely blind for the most part, aside from watching the 1984 version, which didn't really do me any favors at understanding the story at the time, but the difference is night and day.
Kill this child, she's an abomination. Kill her. Get out of my mind!
You can tell that this is something that so much care and love went into it. Even for a complete newcomer like me to the story, it's crafted for you to embrace every detail and be completely sucked into the world of Arrakis. That's why I'm so fond of the pacing and decision to split Dune into separate films, because it gave the world and the characters the space they needed for everything to be properly developed. Despite Dune not offering the complete story the book offers, from a cinematic standpoint it made complete sense. It serves merely as an introduction, setting up Arrakis, setting up the factions, setting up the politics. Everything is built perfectly while still maintaining that huge cinematic quality you expect an IMAX film to have. Now, because visuals play such a big role in this film, you really can't say much without mentioning Greg Fraser. He is the cinematographer for Dune, and his credits really speak for themselves. The man is no stranger to making a movie look absolutely gorgeous, but I genuinely think Dune is without a doubt his best work, so you're really doing yourself a disservice if you're not watching this on the biggest screen you can find. His keen eye paired with Denis' fantastic script really make exploring Arrakis a complete joy and feel like the film is wasting no time with the information they're giving you. But cinematography is just one of the very many things that Dune excels at. I mean, the entire production design is off the charts. The makeup, the costumes, the set design, it's just perfect. Now, as if all these technical aspects weren't good enough, just look at the cast. It is absolutely stacked from head to toe with some of the best talent in Hollywood right now. You have names like Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, Oscar Isaac, Rebecca Ferguson, Stellan Skarsgård, Josh Brolin, Dave Bautista, which interestingly enough I'll be talking about more in a future video, but yeah, the list goes on. There are just many reasons to love Dune. It's a movie that really shows you that it cares about the material it's adapting, and considering the sheer size of it, it is rare for everything to go as perfectly as it does. And that's just me talking about Dune Part 1. I haven't even touched the topic of Dune Part 2, but oh man, let me tell you, it's even better. Like I said, Dune 1 came out during a strange time for movies. Of course it was going to make an impression over the lackluster competition from that year, but now that Dune Part 2 has come out 3 years later, it has cemented itself not only as a great blockbuster, but maybe some of the best ever. The significance of Dune Part 2 lies mostly in having complete creative freedom. Denis himself has stated that the first Dune felt more like constructing the sandbox, and Dune Part 2 is finally being able to play with the sand. Dune Part 2 feels much more like a rewarding experience. There's more of everything, and it does carry a heavier momentum with this point of Paul Atreides' arc. It's much more action-centered, which is amazing because the Fremen get to play a bigger role here. There are more sandworms, Frey finally gets introduced, but it also culminates into part of the tragedy of Dune, which is why I think the story is so brilliant. I heard this comparison a while back and I thought it was so true, but witnessing Dune today feels about as right as it felt to watch Star Wars back in 1977. I haven't seen a world this dense with detail and people so engaged with it in almost my whole life. It seems about every 20 years we get blessed with this kind of epic trilogy. Star Wars back in the 70s and 80s, Lord of the Rings in the 2000s, and now finally we have Dune. I know some of you might be asking, well, what about Avatar? Avatar is phenomenal in its own right, and yes, it did become much more promising with the second one, but come on man, let's be serious for a minute. For how long those films take to develop, it's hard for them to stay in the mind long enough to keep that excitement going all the way through, but maybe that's just me. They are the highest grossing movies of all time, admittedly, but I feel like Dune is just reaching better heights and a lot faster too. But I don't have much more to say beyond that. I mean, Dune 2 is still really fresh in my mind, and I plan on seeing it at least another time before it's gone from IMAX theaters, so I just wanted to express my joy for something like this existing. Of course, Dune Part 2 will always be around for you to enjoy and experience, but if you want this story at its truest and best form, don't miss it while it's in theaters. God bless.
May thy knife chip and shatter.
May thy knife chip and shatter.